Well, our moms think we're funny.
Hey, everybody. What's up, it's Acomi.
Hey, everybody. Where did Turk go?
Have you looked in the bathroom? Sometimes he sleeps in there.
Oh, alright. So, hey, everybody, this is Turk182.
And me. You know who I am.
We know who he is.
I think you've heard about me.
Ooh, look at that ego shine. we get 4 subscribers and all saying like, I'm big shit around here. You heard? So what are we doing today, Acomi?
Today we're going to play another improv game like we did with Don't Get Me Started.
Alright.
Because we learned some things about you from Don't Get Me Started.
What did we learn about me?
You hate chess.
I do hate chess.
You think chess players are bullshit.
I'm going to play Letterman. Letterman takes the T off his chest. The chest then turns chest into chest. Dun, dun, dun.
And we learned that I couldn't think of anything really bad to say about Doggy Style.
No.
So,
I mean, Snoop Dogg wrote a whole album about it, so...
So Don't Get Me Started is a very simple improv game. Player 1 gives player 2 a prompt, and player 2 has to pretend like they're the world's greatest expert on that. You begin a lengthy discourse on it, and I'm allowed to ask, and player 1 begins Player 1 will have a lengthy discourse on it, player 2 is allowed to ask questions about it, and you just see how long you can go.
And we're not, this is not Don't Get Me Started, this is World's Greatest Expert, right?
Right.
Okay, World's Greatest Expert.
So, yeah, this is just something that you just happen to know everything about, or me. I would assume we're both going to take a turn on this.
Alright, I'm
Okay.
good. I'm ready for it.
And I'll see if I can ask any questions about it. So let me just hit the random article button here on Wikipedia, because I think it's a little bit more fair to do that, rather than...
Go looking for something?
Yeah, or just to, say something that I have in mind, or whatever.
Right.
So
you're at Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, like you were before?
Right.
Okay.
Emeritus Professor Jennifer Jane Jenny Hawking, FASA. Born 20th of November, 1954.
Say what now?
Your article is Jenny Hawking, Emeritus Professor Jennifer Jane Jenny Hawking, FASA.
Okay, you got to let me see some, because I'm not putting all those words together. Okay.
She is an emeritus professor.
Jenny Hawking is her name.
Yeah.
Emeritus Professor Jennifer Jane Okay, wait, you kept saying Jennifer Jane Jenny Hawking FASA. I'm like, what is... There's too many words in that thing. So I don't really...
You're the world's greatest expert on her.
Well, I am.
Don't be modest.
Okay, so I'm the world's greatest expert on her in the same way that you're the world's greatest expert on Chris Chan, which is to say that she's only of interest to people that really want to know about her. Otherwise, she's really boring. There's really nothing. She's a professor amongst a ton of other professors that really hasn't done shit. I mean,
what's she a professor of?
So she is actually a what do you call it? A horticulturalist.
Oh, really?
That's what she founded. Okay. Yeah, Jennifer Jane Hawking, J.J. Hawking.
Smitty Workman Jansen. Huh? Smitty Workman Jansen.
Yeah. So J.J. Hawking, most people just call her J.J. So J.J. Hawking, she became a horticulturalist, and she is trying to find new ways of growth. As a kid, she went hiking with her parents in, I think it wasn't Australia, because they left and they went on holiday. And I always get it because I always want to say New Zealand, but I think it's because Australia, and then there's the Kiwis and Aussies, but no, they went on to, and it wasn't safari, it was shit. I'm sorry, this part really isn't important where they went. What's important is that she got separated from her parents. And she got lost in the woods, and she was only lost for like 2 days, and she wasn't lost because it wasn't really a very, very big area, but she was scared, so she wasn't trying to find them, and they didn't know their way around, but she ended up finding her. But in the process of it, she had kind of found a little cave and shelter, and she lived in there for that 2-day period.
Huh, that's badass.
Well, I mean, not really. She was just scared, just hid in the damn cave for 2 days and didn't eat or anything. And
Oh,
so,
she didn't eat. Did she drink?
no, not really. I mean, I think in the cave there was a the condensation, whatever, on the ground, but she was really too scared to eat or drink anything. So she was pretty dehydrated and hounded. But when they found her, there were these plants that were growing, and they were kind of like nightshades. They're these plants that would grow in the dark. But she had gotten some of those because she thought they were kind of pretty or whatever. When she first went missing, she had found the cave, she found the plants.
Yeah.
And then when she went to find her parents, she couldn't find them again. She went back to the cave.
Okay.
And she just stayed in there. She had the plants, and then it was kind of like the plants in my, these are things I went looking for. She wouldn't let them go. She thought they were really pretty. Found out that these plants grew in the dark. And they were a hybrid kind of plant that would actually grow in the dark, kind of like a mushroom or fungi, but they would also grow in the light. And depending on whether they were growing in the light or in the dark, determined how the plants would grow and what they would be. If they grew in the dark, they would actually grow under the female, I forget what you call it for plants or whatever. If they grew in the light, they grow under the male.
Okay.
But because they're a plant, they would still kind of do the same kind of pollination, reproduction kind of deal. But because no one had really ever looked at them or taken them out of the dark because they just assumed they grew in the light, they never knew anything of it. There were plants of that same, it's not genus, is it? I think that's more for animals.
Yeah, I really wouldn't know.
Anyway, but there were some that were not growing in the dark or growing in the light because they grow differently. They didn't put the two of them together as being of the same plant variety. Okay. So growing up, she kind of discovered that of sorts, kind of dedicated her life to it. That's how she then became the emeritus professor and then moved on from there. And so she's just been trying to find new ways and basically studying plants to find out how many of them also have that. But also, if you have a plant that can grow in two different ways, what happens if you take that plant and grow it in both ways? So I've got, because this can grow in both conditions, what if you have a plant that lives in both conditions? So we have it, they have some of those ornate trees where they grow, and as they start to grow, they'll start to wrap them, intertwine them, so they'll grow in that fashion. The plants that were of this particular style or whatever, or, plant, whatever it is, the ones of those that were growing in the light, they also are in the darkness, but they're not in the same dark soil conditions. So they did basically just like regular plants. They don't grow. They grow more in the sunlight as they're absorbing the UV rays. Yeah. But the soil conditions are the same. Okay. The ones that are growing in the dark, they're not getting any light, or they don't get as much light, but they're growing in that damp soil condition there, and they grow differently. So if you had one that you have those in both, it's in the damp soil conditions, but grows in the light, and you have the one that's in regular soil conditions that's growing in the darkness, and you've got them both growing light comes on, for sunlight comes on for 12 hours or whatever, then goes off for 12 hours to see how that affects them when they're both growing in their regular conditions and in their irregular conditions.
Right, yeah.
And then how you can splice and hybrid those for other things and see if you can get something that can grow or then become something different. So if you take that and you mix it with a vegetable or a fruit, and I'm going to basically kind of make a cross species of this, what happens if you take a tomato plant, you cross hibernate that, make a hybrid of that, and you grow it under those damp, dark conditions. Yeah. What's that going to do to the fruit? It's going to be edible. Is it going to create a new type of fruit? And can you then create something that through years of this crossbreeding and the hybridization, right? Can you create something that is going to be able to adapt and live no matter what condition, what the conditions are? Right.
And so all this is spurred on by her being strained in a cave for 2 days?
Right. Because she found that plant that was growing in the dark conditions. Yeah. She carried those flowers with her. She planted them being a young kid. I think she was 8 or so. Because it's not like she broke any bones. She was just dehydrated and malnourished for a period of 2 days, which is not that great. You can live for 7 to 10 days, I think, without food or water. Yeah. Children not as long, but she was only gone for 2 days. So she plants that when she gets home, but she plants it in the different soil conditions. And at first it looked like it was dying, but then it did start to grow. It just had to adapt to that new condition.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then that kind of spurred on to to what she ended up kind of devoting herself to, because when she kind of discovered it and kind of brought it to the attention of other people, that made her a big deal. And then she just kind of developed her field of study to that. And it's one of those things where she discovered this young girl made everyone else kind of look stupid.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, we never discovered this before. And she did. And it kind of became like her pet project baby thing. and at that time, it's just like...
Was she a decent student?
Well, I was gonna say she wasn't a great student. You can't really say, because at that point she had so many people that were helping her, like professors and things like that. They were helping her because of what she did, and not want to try to. You're not gonna steal this kind of research from a young kid, take it on as your own, but like, look, I made this. Right? Yeah. And so they were kind of helping her, kind of banking off what she had done and what she had created, and then incorporating their knowledge with it and carrying her along. So you can't really say whether or not she was a good student or not, because she was kind of being nurtured into this, this field of study,
right.
the whole way. So like I said, she really hasn't done anything. I don't want to say not done anything great since then, but she really hasn't done anything fantastic since then. But her field of study with the hybridization of the plants, it's gonna take a long time before those are gonna yield any kind of effects. You can't just do that overnight like you would something else. So,
okay, so she's still living.
Right, she's still living.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it could be, within the next couple of years, it may be something that she'd be like, okay, yeah, this works. And it's also not, they has to do something that has to be sustainable. And then she's trying to adapt it to other things as well. So maybe it didn't work well with tomatoes. Maybe it could work well with the grapes. Maybe it's going to, so you got to do all those things, but you can't run them all at the same time, because I've got to do this one, see what I learned from this one, and then try this one, and then see, okay, what did I learn from this? That will affect the outcome of this if it's not working the way it wants. So as of right now, she hasn't done anything of great importance since then, but it's a long-term research project.
Yeah, she's definitely playing the long game.
Yeah.
Is she just focusing on one type of food, or?
To my knowledge, she's not focusing on one. She's doing like a particular group at a time. So
Gotcha.
If we're going to work on, let's say, like I think she's starting with the vegetables that grow that are soil based, like potatoes and things that grow in the ground. Right, and thank you, tumors. So beets, potatoes, onions, those kind of things.
Okay.
And so those are all kind of classified in the same area. I'm going to work on those, and then from those I may branch off into something else. Oh, I learned something different. Learned something about this. So now I'm going to try my hand at cabbages. Yeah. And I'm going to use some of that stuff with those before we move into before I'm going to move into like apples.
Interesting.
I'm going to say I know a fair amount about her. I haven't gotten deep into her studies, because it says for me to read more about how her projects and her particular like field works. I have to know more about that particular field.
Right.
And that's required a lot of like research, and where that I don't really need to just kind of follow her and be like, yeah, this is what she's doing, this is what she's working on.
Fascinating. So I don't think I'm going to tell you what she actually does, but
I'm going to say I got kind of a shit topic. You gave me a person. Like, what am I going to do with a person? You're going to make a bunch of shit about a person.
I mean, we could have re-rolled if you'd wanted, but I think
you didn't tell me I could have re-rolled.
You didn't ask.
It's just the same. It's the same thing you do with the fucking Triscuit crackers. You don't tell me shit.
You could have had some if you wanted them. Should have said something.
Well, maybe if I knew.
Oh shit!
What?
I just rolled mine and I got Cerithiopsis Eliza.
I was actually gonna roll for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please do, because that sucked.
Please roll for me. I can't bear to.
Oh, it was a species of sea snail, so I would have been like way far off on that. I was gonna say that it was like a tenant in ancient Roman church writings.
Hold on. See, this is so. The first one I ran randomized for you came up with a person. I'm like, I don't want persons. So the second one I came up with, I'm like, I have to explain to you what it explain to you what this is. And if I did that, that kind of does it all. So
I don't know, I'll just pull it out of my butt. I can figure out what it
randomize
is. I'm the world's greatest expert on it.
All right, this last one roll I'm gonna do. Oh fuck! I can't do that either. Sorry.
Just do it.
No, I gotta. Okay, I'm gonna go back. God, this is shitty. I'm just gonna say this is shitty. It really is. Because the randomizer doesn't. Okay. This is not a fun game. I'm sorry. This is not a fun game at all. So I'm getting shit like Road Rage is one of the ones I got. Like, you can't tell me what the fuck Road Rage is.
Could have done that.
Yeah, I knew you could have. Okay, Alexander Belostany. Alexander Mikhailovich Belostany.
Alexander Belostany. Okay. So Alexander Belostany was like, it's a really inspiring story, actually. He wound up becoming the mayor of his hometown, but he had really humble beginnings. See, he was actually this hobo who drifted into town on a train, and just pretty much just squatted there, right? And just like, he was just that homeless guy that would like do magic tricks for the kids and stuff. And so, for a long time, people were like, it's a little bit of an eccentric dude, a little bit weird, but he doesn't seem to be doing any harm. And so, after a while, it got time to elect a new town mayor, and the people were just like, hey, you know what, we've just kind of just let Alexander just like, squat here outside of town, and every once in a while somebody might, toss him some like leftovers or something, but why don't we actually do something decent for the guy? And so they all like orchestrated like a campaign for him to run as mayor, and like everybody like kind of worked together to like, hey, make sure you vote Alexander in, because this guy really deserves this,
So what did he do to deserve except for like showing kids like hobo magic tricks?
Well, like he was a really like trustworthy guy, and he was really kind to people. He did a lot of stuff like, like somebody's car got a flat while they were driving around outside of town, and he just happened to be right there, and so he changed their tire for him because he'd done some work in previous towns as a mechanic, just to just to basically tide him over and get him some travel money. So like he changed people's tires. At one point, there was a really bad snowstorm one winter, and the guy's homeless. He really had no shelter, but he was just like walking from house to house, checking in on everybody. And there was even one like old widow who she was like out of firewood, so her house was like super cold. So he actually like got her a bunch of firewood and built her a nice fire. So like he was just a genuinely nice guy. He was just like a really good guy who never did any harm. And so, like, the people just they decided this would be their way of repaying him, of seeing, let's actually listen to what a poor person has to say to improve our town.
And what town was this in again?
I didn't bring that up, but it was a little, just a small little town in the Midwest, and this was in like the late 1920s, early 1930s. And of course, Alexander Belostany, he was a Russian guy. He was the child of some Russian immigrants, and he just due to a family tragedy and losing his parents, he was just like a hobo from a very young age, of just like traveling from town to town and hopping on the next train to the next place. So after he became,
after they elected him, they all wanted him to be mayor, and they all
everybody was like, it's going to be for a year at most, worst case scenario, we can just drive him out of town, but let's give this guy a chance and just really listen to what he has to say, because he's really not a bad guy. And crazy story, right at first it seemed to be like this great idea, and like he had all kinds of really great suggestions to just like make the town more welcoming and to like strengthen the community. And and just like, and, hey, he was coming from the perspective of, here's what happens as a stranger in this town and as like a homeless person in this town. So he had some like really good suggestions for like setting up a welcoming committee and all that. And like for the first year, it was like really, really nice. Everybody was like, "Yeah, this guy's actually really smart. We should have listened to him, much sooner." So they reelected him, and that's actually when the trouble started.
So he was reelected after the first year.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody was like so happy with what a good job he was doing, but little did they know that like it was slowly starting to go to his head. So it was actually during a revival. There was this circuit preacher who would travel around during that time, and he would like every summer he would like preach these revivals, and he was like he was a faith healer, and then this guy Alexander, he just interrupts the service one night and it's like, I'd like to speak tonight. And everybody's like, this is a little unprecedented. It's a little bit rude too. You really shouldn't be doing this. He's like, no, this is like really heavy on my heart. He gets up there and he just starts preaching, just hellfire and brimstone preaching, just preaching up a storm. And like more people came forward that night than like any other time that the circuit preacher had actually orchestrated a revival. So like people were like, wow, this guy has a lot of passion. He really speaks with a lot of power. And really speaks from the heart. And so they ask him to come back and keep speaking the next night, and it's like they just kind of just essentially pull the rug out from under the circuit preacher, and
just let Alexander take over.
Basically, they're like, wow, that was like a really like life-changing message, and they wanted to hear more from him. So, it was basically like they didn't even give Alexander a choice in the matter. It was like, just please come back. This was we got so much more out of this than we've ever gotten from this preacher. And it was kind of like bothering the street preacher, right? The circuit preacher. It was kind of bothering him. So, the next night, Alexander's up there and, he's preaching and the circuit writer's like, well, you know what, you claim to have the Holy Spirit, you've never shown up to any of my messages before, but you claim to have the Holy Spirit, you claim to be this great man of faith, let's see you heal. But little did this circuit rider realize that Alexander had run into him in a previous town. And he actually knew that this guy was actually like a fake faith healer. That he would have the same people come with him town to town, pretending to be like crippled or blind or whatever. So the circuit preacher was really a fraud. Yeah.
And Alexander knew it.
Yeah, basically. So he just walked up to one of these like old guys on crutches and he just like pulled the crutches out from under him like really suddenly, and he knew that the guy was like gonna like naturally catch himself and get his feet up from under him just to prevent himself from falling. So he does that, and the guy like staggers and takes a step, and he's like on his feet, and like he's just caught in the act, and everybody's like, he healed him, and so people just like go off on like how amazing Alexander is and how he's actually this great man of faith, and so Alexander sort of uses this to like basically start gathering a following. And
this is while he's still mayor?
Yeah, this is while he's still mayor. It just seemed like it was going to be this mayoral thing of, I just want to address the town. But then he actually used this to get a foothold, and actually now he's like starting to form a religion, right? So, it starts to become this nightly thing. Just every night he's still up there in the tent, and finally like the circuit rider just has to move on. It's like he doesn't have a chance here now, and Alexander's just like, he's preaching every night, and it hits this point where he just like starts at Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, and he just starts working his way through the entire Bible. And I mean, people were so into it, and more people are like coming into this tent, and people are so into it that he would go like 5, 6, 7 hours at a time sometimes, just like ridiculous amounts of just expositing, and so like it just wound up being that he had people who were totally committed to him as a preacher, and and some people even began to say that he was a prophet. So, sure enough,
So if he's preaching every night, how's he still doing his mayor duties?
he kind of lets it fall by the wayside. He delegated some of it. Like he would have like his secretary and stuff. Keep an eye on things and like answer messages and whatnot. But it was basically just like a filibuster type situation of like he is there and he is talking, and it was just like he just like fit right into it. It was like he found his calling, and people were just eating it up. And so sure enough, after like I want to say it was like 3.5 weeks of just doing this every night for just untold hours, he was finally like, come on, my people, we're going to the promised land. And he started off on like how God had moved the promised land from Israel to out there in America, and that they were going to march out into the wilderness and find the promised land. And at this point, it was apparently at this point that like some of the townspeople who weren't really like taking the bait, there were a few, not many, but just like some of the old timers and the farmers who were like still really devout in like their original faith. They started referring to him as the Pied Piper, and so he just whips the people up into a frenzy. He's like, "Come on, we're going off into the wilderness," and he's talking about that passage in the Bible that is like, don't go out with, a change of garments or extra cloaks or any of that, and you only need one pair of sandals, and God will provide for the rest, and they take off into the wilderness, and at that point they just drop off from history. There's like no account of them, so people can only just assume that he just like led them off to their death somewhere to like die out in the desert or whatever.
How many people from the town did he take?
He took like 2/3 of them. It was a pretty significant thing. It was something of a tragedy.
So what happened to the town afterwards?
Well, it was obviously a pretty big loss, and they took some pretty bad hits, but they were able to rebuild. They were within traveling distance of some bigger cities and stuff, so they were able to like, bring in some other people and basically say, we have need for you. So they were able to rebuild after a while.
And all this happened within like a year and a couple months.
Yeah, it was like all within the span of like one summer. It was basically just like all one summer. He just went from being like the mayor that everybody liked to just like, I've got a taste for like religious authority and I'm loving it. And it just completely made him go crazy, basically.
It sounds like everybody's already crazy.
Essentially, it's really hard to tell with hobos a lot of times, but there is some speculation. There were a couple of articles written last year about how it's possible that he was like a schizophrenic, but there's not a lot of evidence for that. Unfortunately, there is no like remaining record of what his preaching was about. Like there was like one news article written just saying that he's still preaching, he's still at it, and just like he's here same time every night. Go to the tent and hear him, and like so there's that one little news article written on it, but there's nothing about what did he specifically preach about, outside of saying that he was going through the Bible in order, and apparently at like the beginning of this year they did discover that like the circuit rider had written some kind of like little gospel tract warning about him. But it was basically saying, all it was saying was that, he didn't believe in the healing powers and all that. So, it kind of takes,
But he knows that they weren't real because he was a fraud.
Right.
You happened to catch one of his fraudsters in the act.
Yeah, so he's basically like just trying to scramble to get some semblance of authority back. And that's really all anybody knows about him. I think his name was like Rupert Holmes or something like that. So yeah, so that's the story of Alexander.
So, when after he left and he was the mayor of the town, who took over? I mean, how did they, with some of the people being gone and that sort of thing, how did they like get the political structure back and like what did they do? I mean, what did they do afterwards?
The remaining third of them, they finally just they had to elect a new mayor out of who was left, and they picked the most level-headed person who I believe was actually the blacksmith. And and in a lot of ways, that just kind of them falling back on, well, he wants the job less than anybody, so obviously he's the most qualified. And he actually did a pretty admirable job with it. The town was never quite the same after that. It never had like quite the bustling economy that it once did. But they managed to survive. The town didn't go extinct or anything like that.
So and nothing was ever found of Alexander or any of his followers?
Nope, without a trace. In a lot of ways, it was like the Roanoke colony.
Huh. That's surprising that none of them ever research. I mean, they all just disappeared. Like there was no trace of them at all. Like nothing to be found.
Oh yeah. Well, there's like a very small faction of people on 4chan who claim that he was telling the truth and that he knew the way to the promised land. And so I mean, they claim that everything he said was true and that he actually took them to the promised land. But that's crazy people on the internet. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that, because all they did was just vanish without a trace. I think it's just as plausible to say that they were taken by aliens in that case.
Were there any children among them?
Yeah. I mean, there were some entire families. There weren't a lot of kids, but I mean, there were some. And of course, there were some spouses who left their significant others, things like that. A couple of fathers who just left their wife and kids.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't a huge town, but I mean, it was a population of 300 or 400.
Oh, that sounds pretty devastating.
So yeah.
Oh, so that's the story of Alexander, huh?
Yeah, crazy, right?
You would have thought they would have learned a lesson after that. Like, hey, let's not elect any homeless guys to public office that they don't know shit about it, and he's been homeless all this time. But
oh yeah. I don't think it was while the blacksmith was mayor, but pretty sure the next mayor after him actually made it a law that you had to live in the town for much longer than a year. And I think it's you have to have been a citizen of the town for 6 years, something like that,
before you could be eligible to be elected to
right.
office.
So yeah.
Now, is the town still in existence today?
It's going under a different name now. But there's some dispute. There's 3 different towns out in Kansas that claim to have been that town. But it was originally Shermansburg.
Shermansburg. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no. But yeah, it's like I said, it's under a different name now, and there's a lot of dispute as to which it really is.
Wow. Okay. Well. So I don't know if this is covered in your knowledge of him, but do you know if there were any other towns that kind of suffered a similar fate, where the person that was elected to office turned out to be this kind of weird, I don't want to call him a charlatan because he wasn't trying to dupe the people. He just but were there any other that were like that?
Well, there was actually whispers of one town out in California, but it was really just 5 or 6 people went missing, and it really wasn't connected. Apparently, it wasn't connected to anybody whipping them up into a religious fervor and leading them away. They just kind of disappeared without a trace. But there's not any guarantee that there's a connection there.
Right.
But as far as specifically him some guy developing a relationship with people and then just basically brainwashing them for 3 weeks straight, then there's nothing definite about that I'm aware of.
Pretty interesting. It's a dark part of American history.
Oh yeah, a great tragedy. I'm not sure why it's not warned against more in public schools, honestly.
No, it's just one of those things where in public school they never want to tell you all these horrible things or whatever, because they it's well, this doesn't sound like a really great place to live. The world sounds awful.
Right. So how are we for time? So we're about 30 minutes in. We could either break for an ad or just call it a short one.
I think I'm okay with calling it a short one.
Yeah.
Given everything that's going on, is let's just go ahead and just it's kind of end this one here before we have another technological snafu on our hands.
Yeah, God, that was frustrating. All right, so yeah, so this was a short one, but this was fun.
I'm not going to tell you who he really was or what he really did.
No, if anybody wants to figure this stuff out, then they can look it up themselves.
Yeah.
And
I would like this more if it were an item and not a person. But everything I kept pulling up was like it was like a person. Like the one was like Court Aid, and it stood for like the Catholic organization for for delivering aid to. I'm like, oh, come on.
Court Aid. See, I would have said that was like some kind of a drug or something.
And then it's like more people and more people. I'm like, without any kind of context, you're just giving me the why is this guy? No, and why are you just giving me like a name? And I'm just making a bunch of shit just on a name. I could do that with anything. So I was like,
right.
I need an item. And then it was like road rage. I'm like, no, we all know what road rage is. And the one was like the big comfy couch. I'm like, oh, come on, you got to give me something more than that.
Oh, well, I would have like made that really specific.
What?
Like the big comfy couch, I would have had like a specific story for like it's the big comfy couch, you know. It's not a big comfy couch.
Well, that's what it was, the big comfy couch.
Yeah. So I'd have been able to come up with something for that.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, okay. It was like a Nickelodeon or Disney like kids show. The big comfy couch is a big comfy couch, and one would sit on it and she would tell stories and something like that. So I figured you knew what that was.
No.
Yes. Yeah. I unfortunately I think that we need to if we do this one again, we need to set some kind of like rules like no people, because
that's fair.
because it's just like, oh, I'm just making up a story.
Yeah.
And
there's probably something better besides like Wikipedia that we can use, but I'm not sure what that would be. So hey, if anybody has any suggestions, hit us up.
Yeah, there's got to be something different we could use. I wonder if we could do that with like a random movie. And like here's the title of the movie, you know.
Oh, totally. There are movie title generators.
Yeah. Well, not to generate. Well, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Just to generate a movie title and be like, okay, now make a movie about it. It'd be just like Golden Globus, you know. It's like, oh, here's a movie poster. Now, oh, that's what we could do. We just find like a random movie poster, and then we have to like make up a story about the movie poster, just like Golden Globus did.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll put that on our list here.
He's gonna kill her? Yes, he is.
It's a shame.
Yeah, very much so. Doesn't that chick look like Anna Faris? Oh, nice.
When he was in the cage?
Yeah.
A little bit.
She's got her lips and eyes. Where's her show her again?
There was like no pomp and circumstance to that sacrifice either.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep watching this weird ass.
This is Amazon's.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna keep watching this weird ass movie, guys. So
we're watching a movie. It's called The Amazons.
Seeing a lot of boob.
Well, that's because they're doing sacrifices.
Not great boob, but just boob.
I like how she's just giving up. She's like, no, I don't want you to sacrifice me for this thing.
Oh, hell, if people are going to sacrifice me, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if people are going to sacrifice me, they're going to have to earn it. I would totally ragdoll. Okay, well, yeah, so, hey, thanks for giving us a listen, everybody. And, check out some of our other podcasts. If you thought this improv game was an interesting concept, then we also have one that we did on an improv game called Don't Get Me Started, where the goal is to make an angry rant about our given topic. And I thought that was pretty fun.
I did like that one. Don't Get Me Started was good. Didn't we do another one too?
No, but we have plans for others.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah.
All right, and we will be back with some other interesting things. We're gonna just talk about some other stuff, and I think one of the things we're gonna do more this season is kind of do more with movies and comic books and stuff like that.
Yeah. We want to kind of get back to our roots.
Yeah, I mean that's fun. Yeah, sometimes we do have to take a break from that kind of stuff because there's only so much you can say before you kind of seems like you're repeating yourself with like, oh, this guy again, or this thing or this topic. But yeah, it's kind of nice to kind of just we're gonna take a break for a minute and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, anyway, so You guys have a fantastic evening, and we will catch you guys later.
Zang, yo.
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.